All right, well, hello and welcome back to the Lunch and Learn, our first one of 2016. I'm Bryan Krusniak. I get to be one of the hosts for this. And it seems like it's been a while since we've gotten together on the Lunch and Learns, and we're glad to be back. Before I kind of introduce who we have with us today, I want to make special note. I don't know if you guys can hit a different shot, but we're on our new studio. So we've kind of refinished and redone the studio. You can see a little bit. And that's thanks to Dean Mogg and Corey and Barb and the whole crew. We had a lot of people involved in kind of redoing the set. So it looks great. I want to give these guys some virtual applause. So for today's session, we have, of course, with us as always, Joe Vincent. Joe, Happy New Year.
Yeah, thanks.
And for today's session, we are going to be talking a little bit about building a culture of learning. And there are kind of different groups that we have involved in building this culture. And what we're going to talk about today is kind of the groups with IT a little bit. So I get to kind of play two roles on that one. And then we also have with us the director of the Teaching and Learning Center, Dr. Marsha Ham. So hi, Marsha. She's coming with us from Zoom. Welcome, Marsha. And then we also have Mike Kronenfeld, and most of you know Mike as the director of the A.T. Still University Still Memorial Library. A.T. Still Memorial Library.
There it is.
All right.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, Mike. And then we also have with us here live in the studio in Kirksville, not in Arizona, Bill Coombs. And Bill is with us as the director of the ETDC.
Hey, everybody.
And so Bill is here now based out of Kirksville rather than Arizona.
Yep, I'm in the deep winter here.
Yeah, he looks colder. I think that's what it is.
So let's kind of start with kind of the big picture of what we have in terms of support for building this education culture. So we have the library and they have their role. And Mike, maybe you can talk a little bit about kind of how you see your role of the library. Then we'll go to Marsha. She can talk a little bit about how the Teaching and Learning Center fits in. And then I'll kind of wrap it up with the role that IT plays.
Okay, thank you, Brian. This whole moving the university towards an environment that's more centered on effective learning and teaching really grew out of the 2010-2015 University Strategic Plan. And that plan called as one of the principal values of the university was learning-centered education. And this was for the whole community, faculty, staff, students. They all need to be, we want to encourage and teach them how to be lifelong learners. We want to do education, wanted to call for educational activities that emphasize and demonstrate the pathology of learning. And we want an all educational activities model and foster a learning-centered approach. And we've been moving towards that for a number of years. And so we're looking at some of the components that are going to help support the university moving in that direction. But what we're really focusing on is how to create a university environment in which everyone thinks and is more focused on how to do effective learning, effective teaching, both to make all of us better and help us to ultimately, what is the goal of the university, prepare the best, the highest quality clinicians possible. The library's role in that has several roles. Number one is it's pretty well recognized in all of healthcare and the healthcare professions that a education-based, evidence-based model of care is an important component of that. So the job of the library is to provide the right evidence and information-based resources and make them easily accessible and usable so that our students and faculty, both in terms of their clinical and their educational, will have the tools from that standpoint available for them to use. In addition, the library started 5 years ago our Educational Technology Development Center. And the role of this unit is to provide that one-on-one consultation with faculty and other staff on how to use the large array of academic databases and support tools that IT makes available to the university community. Now, this is a role in terms of taking our faculty who Most of them are hired because they're very good in the area of knowledge or the aspect of medicine or health professions they deal with, and not necessarily because they're experts at producing effective digital content. So that's the role of the ETDC. And so we see this in the library as we're one leg, but the support resources need to support the university as we move towards this learning-centered approach and of an environment,
Right.
and under the leadership of Marsha and the Teaching and Learning Center.
Great, thanks, Mike. So Marsha, maybe you can kind of follow on to Mike's role from the library standpoint of offering those resources and providing educational support, into kind of how that morphs into what the TLC, the Teaching and Learning Center, is going to do.
Well, as you probably know, the Teaching and Learning Center is rolled out officially in August when I arrived. And so we're in the process of building a Teaching and Learning Center to support and serve as a vital resource to the university. And what we're here to do is to serve as a center where the faculty have an opportunity to tap into new ways of thinking and doing, and really growing their teaching practice and learning about new approaches to the evidence-based learning that we're trying to achieve. So as we begin to build out, then we will have more activities that will be directly related to the activity of supporting, innovative teaching practice and resulting in more engaged learning activities. So I think that one of the goals right now of the Teaching and Learning Center is to really get a handle on some of the really good things that are going in the different colleges and programs, because what I have found in the couple of months that I've been here and talking with both deans and directors and with faculty is that there are a number of things that are happening. But the situation is that we need to help that to spread across the university so it becomes a university endeavor rather than, just being helpful in one particular scenario. So hopefully that'll be also a part of what we're going to do with the Teaching and Learning Center, is to have those conversations across the university and make resources available that will support, growing teaching practice, answering questions about how I can do things newly and differently, what's an approach to really helping students develop critical thinking skills. Those kinds of conversations are very interesting and involved and important for the faculty to really figure out how they might be able to integrate new ideas and new approaches into their teaching. It goes along with the technology, but really the teaching practice, the art of teaching, is the core. And then the technology piece comes in to help support those activities. And so that's the reason that this is such an important dynamic relationship between us and the library and academic technologies and IT. So that's a little bit right there, and to give you an overview. So I'll stop right there and see if you have other questions, because I can tell you about activities we've been involved in so far, if that's where you want to go with this right now.
Yeah,
or I can just
I do.
wait.
I think we want to go into kind of a deeper dive into the Teaching and Learning Center, since that's kind of the new area. But Corey,
Okay.
maybe if you can bring up that graphic that we have kind of the three areas. So we have the Teaching and Learning Center, which, as Marsha said, is kind of focused more on the pedagogical kind of aspects, the art of teaching, if you will. I think that's maybe their focus in one sentence. And then we've got the library, which is responsible for providing resources to help with that. And that's kind of theirs. And there's also the physical space that the library brings. So there's a role that they play there. From our standpoint in IT, we kind of play in the background of both of those areas, where we bring together the technology and the infrastructure, certainly to enable all of that. But then there's also an area of overlap, and you can kind of see that little Venn diagram there. We've got the magic triangle in the middle that we're really trying to hit, where all three groups are coming together to kind of get the best of all worlds. So if you think from an IT standpoint, we support Blackboard and the learning management systems. We have classroom technology, which certainly impacts teaching and pedagogy and whatnot. We have video recording and streaming, which is kind of a new and innovative approach to a method of teaching and a method of learning. And then there's other kind of ancillary things, test taking, assessments with Respondus or ExamSoft. So that's kind of the role that IT plays. So we're really trying to get the best of all three of those worlds. So, Marsha, if you don't mind, let's go a little bit deeper. Talk to us a little bit about kind of what's been going on in the TLC so far.
Okay.
You know, I think ATSU is kind of unique. You know, maybe all of healthcare education is a little bit unique in that we have so much of the teaching and the learning takes place off the traditional campus, you know, in a clinical setting. So maybe talk a little bit about how we develop services to support instructors and you know, teaching and learning off campus.
Well, I'm going to talk about it more in the generic sense at this point, and then I'll touch on that as well. Part of what we're doing right now, as I mentioned, is trying to find out what is happening. And then from that, we will bring together, you know, an advisory committee of faculty that'll include both on campus and online faculty to talk about where we need to go with the Teaching and Learning Center, because this is a faculty resource. It's not something that I am designing. It is something where I'm seeking input in that design so that it becomes the most pertinent and helpful and look to resource to support teaching and the learning aspect that goes along with the teaching. So I think those are the first two things that I need to point out, is that we want to build, you know, a collaborative environment with the faculty, with the departments, with the schools, and with the colleges, so that, you know, we can have examples where they say, we need to know more about this. We need to be able to approach, you know, helping students do this. And then we can put together a resource or a program that will meet that need, either internally within that division or across the university. And in most cases, what we found is that if it's of interest in one unit, that it is actually of interest in the other units. So those are the types of things that we'll be looking at doing. With regards to what has been happening since, you know, August 3rd, when I came on board, it is a lot about the conversations, because coming in new into this environment, health sciences is, you know, unique in the way what the needs are. You mentioned the clinical practitioners that are out there. There's a number of online programs, and there's faculty that are teaching in the regular classroom as well as in the clinical settings at each of the campuses. And so there's really a broad spectrum of types of teaching and environments in which that is happening. And so as we learn more about each of the challenges or the desires to learn more, to build out, then we will design programs to reach out to those individuals. Now, when it comes to reaching to the online faculty and some of the clinical practitioners that are out in the regional centers, then we'll have to use and depend on technology to deliver that, because they're only here on campus occasionally. And so a lot of times those times are so busy that it's not possible necessarily to include activities for them to participate in. But we certainly will look at that. We're looking at, you know, designing timely topics. We did one in early December on critical thinking, how to teach students to think critically. And it was both live on the Mesa campus. We did it Zoom, and we also had captured it to be able to share it with those who couldn't come. And you know, asynchronously, they could go back and look at it. And we'll plan more of those type activities. What I'd like to have is to begin to have regular topics that happen probably monthly on ideas and approaches that faculty would be interested in, whether they're, regardless of the teaching environment that they're teaching in, it has to do with how they help and relate with students and to students to help them be more engaged in the learning activity. Because in the conversations I've had with faculty, there is some concern about the students and the types of students that we have today being of the millennial generation, and they're always tuned into
Sure.
their devices.
Sure.
And getting them to engage in the learning activity more in depth means that there is a deeper level of learning that takes place. And one of the things that we're really, really interested in is helping students to, once they learn it, to own it, so that when they get out in their clinical rounds and in their residencies, that they don't have to necessarily go online to look up a solution, because they learned it and they owned it and they remember it. Unfortunately, a lot of times when students cram for exams, they learn it, then they don't remember it for very long after they took the exam. And so we want to try and help them to be lifelong learners, as Mike mentioned, in the sense that they will retain what they are learning in their classes, whether it's online, in the clinic, or actually in, you know, the actual classroom. So those are the different types of things that we're trying to do. Now, as far as other activities that we've had, many of you might have heard or even participated or joined us for the first Spark Tank that we held in Kirksville in November. And it was a takeoff on Shark Tank, if you know Shark Tank. But the whole purpose was it's a creative grant competition where we were trying to stimulate entries in innovative teaching, engaged learning, and using 3D printing and modeling to support teaching and learning. And we got a number of excellent proposals from both students and faculty that competed in the competition. And the winners each earned like a $5,000 grant to implement their project. And each one of those has a long-term residual effect across the institution, because we do plan to follow up, find out the data that they've collected. If they submit for a presentation or a conference, we will help support them by giving them a travel grant. If they submit for publication and get accepted, they will receive a cash award for that. So everything that we're doing in that regard is not only about generating innovative approaches and ideas to teaching and learning, but it's also to support the scholarship of teaching. So those have long-term benefits, both for the faculty and for the students, that they can learn how to do that now. The faculty know how to do it, but to support them in doing that. So I think that's another, major activity. We have it coming up in Mesa in February, on February 24th. I'll put in a little commercial here. The proposals are due in by February the 8th, and we encourage both faculty and students and faculty-student teams, faculty-student staff teams to submit proposals. If you go online to atsu.edu/SparkTank, that's the website that has all of the application information that you need. Plus, you can my contact information on there if you want to know more in-depth information or have answers to questions. So that's one big activity that we hope will become an annual event. Another example is that I had a request from KCOM to have a conversation about peer review of teaching, and we had a really good conversation and dialogue about that as a beginning to their determining how they want to move forward with that process. So that's an example of where there was a direct request for a particular program, and we continue to reach out and ask, are there things we can help you have conversations around? Again, what I'm trying to do is create a dialogue among the faculty where they have a point of information, whether it's a video or whether it's a presentation by a guest speaker, that they can then begin to have conversations with each other, and to determine how they can best move forward and take advantage of some of the ideas that they're learning. So right now, quite honestly, the Teaching and Learning Center is me and part of one administrative assistant, but that will grow. The plan is to grow and to build staff and to be able to increase the number of activities that we add to the agenda as we go forward. So right now we're in startup phase. I'm really pleased with the progress that we made in a relatively short period of time, and it's only the beginning. And that's what I would say. If you have ideas, if you have for speakers, for presentations, for things that I can help with, please, reach out and get in touch with me. The only thing that right now it's really difficult for me to do is do one-on-one consulting, simply because I'm only one person. But if there are groups and activities that we can bring together to have conversations around, that's wonderful. That I would welcome. And if I don't have an answer, I will find you an answer. I will find you a speaker. I will bring to you an opportunity to have that conversation with some expertise that is garnered for your benefit in that conversation. So that's pretty much a deep dive there, Brian. I think the answer about what to do for clinical faculty or online faculty, that depends on what they need. And we'll certainly look at. I'm having some conversations with a number of the different departments now about their online faculty or their adjuncts that don't come to campus, to figure out ways that we can have engaged activities on Zoom, or to use some of the streaming activities that we've got to really make synchronous and asynchronous conversations possible, so we can get to some of those important topics to them.
Yeah, I think that's part of the benefit of using technology. I mean, to me, the exciting thing about having the technology become a part of the Teaching and Learning Center is there's so much overlap in what's coming down the pipe. If you think about simulators, all the technology behind simulation, virtual reality is another one. And these are things that I think historically instructors have not really been guided on how to use those tools. And so I think the development of the Teaching and Learning Center offers a great opportunity, to help them, think about how do you use these tools? How can I improve learning through some of this technology?
Yeah, well, that's always been my thought, is that the technology is the facilitator of the learning. And there are many, many, many opportunities to figure out how to incorporate the use of appropriate technology. And I guess that's the only thing that I would say, is that that's what we're interested in, is looking for appropriate solutions and partnerships. And we don't want to just put technology in for the sake of technology because it's the end thing right now. We really want to tie it to how it helps improve the learning activities and facilitates the teaching process.
Exactly.
And I think I want to add, as we move forward in these different activities and demonstrations and working together, building the infrastructure, it helps us think in terms on the macro level too. We have to make examples and help the faculty understand why this is important. You know, the step from why to them adopting it requires the infrastructure. But I think the other thing in the different activities Marsha's talking and what we're trying to do is to show them the why. If we can get their interest, they're bright, and if we have the right support tools, they can pick it up. But it's real important that we have this why and this university-wide environment that recognizes the importance of this learning-centered approach.
Yeah, I think that's why we use the term culture, because to me it's really a long-term kind of commitment to that teaching and learning. And really the TLC, or the Teaching and Learning Center, is in its infancy. I mean, Marsha, you've been here, less than a year, right?
I've been here, 5 months maybe?
5 months, yeah. So, it's just in its infancy. So I think for faculty or people who are watching who might have some ideas or, would like to kind of engage in that conversation, what would be the best way for them to, get information to you or somehow engage in a conversation about, what are some visions for the TLC? What should it be?
Well, I think initially the best way, what they can do, is actually to send me an email, and let's find a time when we can talk one-on-one, because I found that that's the best approach to getting the conversation started. Is the more it's about me listening and learning to figure out what it is that they're wanting to achieve, and then looking for solutions to make that possible. So, I'm totally open to conversations one-on-one with. I've visited a number of the faculty meetings that where we've had dialogue about ideas and those types of things. So it can be one-on-one, it can be small group, it can be larger groups. I'm totally open. The biggest thing is just to start the conversation, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's great. I think maybe we should take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll get Bill involved a little bit more and talk a little bit more about the ETDC.
Hey, are you listening? Psst. Have I got an idea for you? If you've got an innovative idea for research, innovation, making a difference, you can really have an opportunity by participating in the Spark Tank. Shh, don't tell everybody, but if I want you to be there and have a great opportunity to get some money and promote your good idea. Okay, think about it.
All right, super. So let's talk to Bill. And Joe, maybe you want to start the conversation off with Bill a little bit about the ETDC?
Yeah, no, I think it'd be good. I was looking around the room, and this is usually the case, but once again, I'm fairly sure I'm the one that knows the very least instinctually about what in the world you guys just talked about. and I think that's good. At least I represent maybe the ignorant majority when it comes to these things, because I appreciated everything that you were saying. But I think sometimes it's difficult for me to make the leap from philosophical to actually practical. And I think, Bill, that's where you can kind of help us understand where some of these things hit the ground and what they look like practically. Because if I understand correctly, there, as the director of the Educational Technology Development Center.
It's a mouthful.
Very
There
good.
you go. I got
Very
it.
good.
First try. You manage a lot of the technological solutions that faculty will use in the pursuit of enhancing the learning environment and mastering these new types of delivery methods and so on and so forth. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think you can think of the ETDC as being kind of a toolbox. You come and you pick your tool, and we try to find out which one you need and set you up, and you go ahead and you make your presentations. I think that's a good way to look at it.
So what are the primary tools in your toolbox right now that you?
Well, the ones that get the most use, I think Camtasia right now, which is a recording software. You can record directly with PowerPoint, and it's available for both PC and Mac. We also have a software that provides a little more interaction called Articulate. We have two versions of that actually, Studio 13 and Storyline 2. And just as a footnote, all of you have seen Storyline 2 in action because Joe, last year for the
That's right.
employee training, used Storyline 2. And you could see in there that you can get assessments in there, and you can, he made a really good seamless presentation, and I thought he did a really good job on it. But there you go, behind the scenes, it was Storyline 2. And,
Yeah, I love that software, and I think I found it through the library.
yes, you did. We had communication about it and set you up. Other stuff that we have on the computer is iBook. Some faculty have been using the iBook on the Mac. And we've had students come in, and we provide the space for the students, and they'll use cloud-based stuff like Powtoon and Movely to create presentations for their classes. So that's something that maybe Mike and I didn't really anticipate as we were setting up the ETDC, but that's worked out pretty well.
Very cool. So if I'm a student or a faculty member, I understand that you have a lot of software support. You have programs that'll meet my needs, and if I call you and say I need something that does this and this and this, you'll find the closest
Exactly.
fit.
Yeah, well,
I think of it, Joe, as kind of the ETDC is kind of a filter or a curator. So they have enough knowledge about lots of different things, more so from the educational standpoint. So kind of in between where Marsha's area is more the art form of teaching,
Right.
our form is more the technology of teaching. Bill's the guy that you're talking about, the guy who's actually where the rubber meets the road. And he can help filter what tools are the best fit for a particular need.
And
Is
what's
that fair?
interesting is I've actually found that to be true, because I did call Bill and say the required employee training is terrible. I don't like it. It's clunky. It's, the organization isn't good. And the Storyline recommendation came from him,
Yep.
along with some initial advice on how to use it. And I felt like it worked out really well, and the feedback was very positive. So I've experienced that, and I know what anyone else would, using you sort of as the filter, like you said.
That's sort of what we envisioned, sort of one-on-one consultation, and come to me, and we can talk about it. We can find out what the best fit is.
Right. In addition to that, you have a lot of equipment, right? Sometimes it's specialized equipment that you have sort of available for use. Is that?
Well, yeah, on both campuses, we have what we call creation stations, and in the creation stations we have a Mac and a PC. The Mac in the Arizona campus I don't think is actually in there right now, but it can be easily moved into there. And but we also provide other equipment like cameras. If you need to put video into your presentation, you can use our cameras to record it, and support stuff like that. Another thing that we have in the library that I think shows really good a collaboration between IT, the library, and the TLC is we're the home of the 3D printers. And
Right.
I know that, as Marsha mentioned, one of the projects that won here on the, one of the proposals that won here on the Kirksville campus used the 3D printer in the library, and they're using it now. Seth McIntyre and Shannon McAllister. And actually Gene Sidwell, the director of the library here, was their mentor for that. So it was a great collaboration between all three. IT maintains the 3D printer. We'll give training to get people going. And obviously it can be used for Spark Tank or all kinds of different learning, as a learning tool.
Yeah, we talk about the three-legged stool, but really if you bring the students into that mix, there's a whole nother dimension that can happen. And I mentioned things like virtual reality. I think that's an area where we'll start to develop the same kind of thing. So we put these 3D printers in the library because that's the physical space. If we could do the same thing with some kind of virtual reality, give students an opportunity to see what does this stuff do, and then they can give us being ATSU, faculty, staff, whoever, feedback on how can I better use those tools to engage students or to do a better job of teaching or improve the learning outcomes.
Yeah, how often do you find that you're helping resource people with things that you don't currently have? Or what's the flexibility there to try to sort of acquire or obtain?
I mean, if somebody comes in and they say, you know, I found this program online, I think it would be really great. Sure, you know, I'll investigate it, see how it would work and everything, and you know, we have set things up like that. It's one way that we found Storyline, to be truthful. You know, we're definitely open to that. You know, people come in with suggestions, and you know, we'll definitely investigate it.
I think that's helpful.
The tools are almost overwhelming. There are so many different tools that you really need to have that filter or curator to have enough knowledge about kind of a generic area of tools. So in academic technologies, Dean and Corey and Ryan on the Arizona campus do a lot of that with video type stuff. You know, how should I record my video? What type of features am I going to be using? I think that's an important role.
I think so too. So Bill, what I'm curious about, and there again, this is my representation of the majority. I think most often what I want to say is, all right, help me see this. What's a very cool case? So like, tell me about an example of something that's worked out really well with you collaborating with faculty members or students or something like that.
Well, Joe is just putting in an advertisement for himself, because one of the things that's worked out really well is that online training.
I can't imagine.
I don't have any notes that lead him to say that, I promise. I promise.
That's great.
But I think it's just an ongoing process. I mean, we've had, you know, a lot of the stuff that I did when I was on the Arizona campus and would like to do here on the Missouri campus is really provide support for when people have problems. You know, they'll call me up and, you know, my Camtasia's not working right. And I would go and pay a visit to their office, and, you know, we'd figure it out. So, you know, that's a lot of what happens. And just incidentally, I'd like to put in a little plug here. I'm here on the Missouri campus, but because of our great IT infrastructure, I can also be virtually on the Arizona campus. If anybody has a problem, get in touch with me, email, telephone me, and we can set up a Zoom session or something like that, and I can deal with the problems over there in Arizona too.
Very good.
Yeah, that's great. So
And let me just jump in real quick right now. We're starting to recruit to have Bill's position here in Arizona, and so hopefully in a month and a half, we'll have a ETDC full-time librarian here who will be working with Bill and Bill's direction. So we are going to be, and meanwhile, on the other staff, and Bill will fill in until then, but we will be replacing that here.
Expanding that service there.
yeah, I mean, really, that's a skill set that we need lots more of. You know, people who can do that curation and have enough knowledge about a variety of different tools that they can help out with. Well, let's take another quick break, and then we'll come back and wrap it up. We've got kind of an overall video that hopefully kind of puts a capstone on some of the things that we've talked about today, how technology is used at ATSU. So let's go to that, and then we'll come back and wrap it up. All right, super. That was a nice little capstone. Thanks, Gene, for putting that together, and Corey and Barb kind of helping out on that. Nice little summary there. So let's kind of go around the table one more time and collect last thoughts from everyone. Mike, you want to start? We'll start out on Zoom with Mike in Arizona.
Hi, I just wanted to, I just wanted to show everyone to find out more information about the Educational Technology Development Center is to check out their website. There's a link to it from the library's main website on the left side in the menu, and also you can go to guides.atsu.edu, academic tools. And this includes a listing of all the different academic software and platforms that IT makes available. Mm-hmm. And again, IT is the one who supports these the different capabilities and tools we have to support the academic side of the university, and Bill and the library then look to help faculty more effectively use them.
So that was actually one of the questions, Mike. If you'll put that right back up, that's one of the questions I was going to ask you was, is there a way that I can, before I bother Bill, figure out what's available and maybe even get a brief overview of what they do? So what I'm doing right now is putting the link that you've got there into the chat window of our live stream, and I think that should pull up on the recorded video as well. In case it doesn't, it's guides.atsu.edu/academic tech tools, all together one word after the slash.
Yeah, and that'll pull up, I think, for them.
Oh, very good.
Here's a quick overview. On the left is a alpha listing. On top, we have them separated by type of tool. And when you go into them, let's say like Camtasia, there's a brief overview of it. Here's some additional tutorials and information that can show you how to use it. And then this can give you a starting point. And then you can also, you'll have on here, on their home, you have the information for contacting Bill.
And it's also available from a link on the left-hand side of the library webpage.
Yep. Bill, any comments on the weather?
Actually, I think it's been pretty good so far. It has been kind of a change, but fortunately there haven't been any blizzards. So
yeah, I think you'll get to experience it this weekend. I think we're supposed to go from 6 to 60 in about 24 24 or something like that.
And that's before you walk inside. That's all outside.
It's all outside.
That happens.
Yeah. Marsha, let's go to you. Anything you want to plug? You want to plug the Spark Tank one more time?
Yeah, sure. I would like to do that. But before I do that, I also want to mention to ask people just to kind of stay tuned, because I'm in the process now of putting together a workshop for faculty that'll probably happen in the late spring. And as I tie down the speaker and the activities around it, I'll be putting that out for everybody to know about it and hopefully plan around it. But with Spark Tank's coming up. It was a great event in Kirksville. We'd like to repeat such a great event here in Mesa. Encourage faculty to talk it up with their students, to talk to each other about it. There are 3 categories: teaching practice, innovative teaching practice, engaged learning, and using 3D printing and modeling to support teaching and learning. Again, the website is atsu.edu/Spark Tank, altogether one word. Okay, so I hope you'll check it out. Everything is there. The application is there. The judging rubric is there. You can even look at the video of the Kirksville event and also see the winners. So please take a few minutes and go in and check that out, and then get busy and get us a proposal in here. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, there was some great stuff at the Kirksville, and I'm excited to see what comes out of the Arizona.
And I would mention also, Brian, that we're looking to hope people will come out to cheer on their teams and to attend the event. It'll be right as the close of the day, so it's like before you go home, come out and spend about an hour or so with us, and it'll be in Saguaro A and B on February the 24th. So again, the deadline for proposals is February the 8th. The date of the event is February the 24th. Look forward to seeing you there.
It's a lot of fun as a judge for the one in Kirksville. It's a lot of fun. So
yeah, it was.
Check it out. All right, well, I think that's it. We'll call it a wrap. Thanks to Marsha, Mike, and Bill for joining us.
Actually, one more thing.
Oh, yes, of course.
I need to figure out, I don't know how academic this is, really. But if we can figure out a way to work selfie sticks into the
There you go. Good job.
Yeah, this is pretty slick right here, don't you think? And look, this is the studio. For those of you who don't get to appreciate this very often, Corey and his team have done a ton of work in here. And this is another resource I think that we should consider to be available. Look at that green screen. That's incredible. Look at that, Bill. Look at those two guys. They're good looking.
We in Arizona are jealous.
Well, they've done a lot of work down here, and I think our ITS and academic technologies departments deserve a lot of credit for how cool all of this stuff is. And I'm so fascinated by selfie sticks that anything else you produce is bound to be like a home run. So I'm looking forward to it.
So you go home run. I was just going to reference Field of Dreams. So this is
there
kind
we
of
go.
the build it and they will come kind of philosophy. So we really are hoping that faculty and staff, people are watching this and seeing the kinds of things that we can do. And really having the resources, the physical resources, the technical resources, the intellectual resources, the people, we have all of that. And so now it's more the ideas, and that's part of the innovation that we need to have to use it. So that's great. So thanks, everyone. We've got a couple of really good episodes. We got a late start this year, but we've got some good stuff coming yet this year, and we'll see you next time. Thanks much.
Awesome.